Tokiyuki is a young boy who is destined to inherit the title of the shogunate and the responsibilities that come with it. However, since the only thing he is good at is running away from his problems, he lives his life as an irresponsible loser. On this particular day, Tokiyuki is doing everything he can to escape his attendants so he won't have to do his training, and he may be quick, but if these guys get tricked by Tokiyuki simply ducking, they might not be cut out for watching him. Tokiyuki does his best to evade them, but eventually he is forced to practice anyway. However, while the attendants aren't looking, he slips away and climbs onto the roof for fun. The attendants frantically chase after him to stop him from getting hurt, but all the commotion is starting to annoy the officials since they are in the middle of the send-off party for Takagi. The attendants lose sight of Tokiyuki, and he takes great pleasure in hiding from them between the horses, but he ends up getting caught by Takagi. Takagi compliments Tokiyuki for being so good at hide and seek, but he reminds him that this isn't the time for games. It's about to be deployed to war, and he hopes to prove his allegiance to Tokiyuki and his family by bringing them victory. Tokiyuki responds by wishing Takagi luck on his mission, and after that, Takagi gets up to leave with his friend who seems to have resting bitch face. Once they are gone, Kyoko shows up behind Tokiyuki and tells him that he doesn't need to be so nervous around Takagi and the others since he is the heir to the shogunate, so eventually he will be the one giving them orders. And as a bonus, he will get to marry her. But Tokiyuki doesn't remember ever proposing. Just then, Tokiyuki notices that the attendants have caught up to him, so Tokiyuki dashes off so fast that he manages to kick up dust on a wooden floor. Kyoko's attendant can't believe how immature Tokiyuki is, as even though he is technically a samurai, he is nothing like Takagi, and if he ends up inheriting the shogunate, he will probably end up becoming a puppet leader that can barely finish 3 sentences on his own like his father. Kyoko doesn't see anything wrong with being a puppet ruler since he would still get to live a lavish lifestyle, and that makes him a prime candidate for her to marry since she's a certified gold digger. Meanwhile, the attendants can't find Tokiyuki since he's a master at hiding once he gets serious. In fact, he's so committed to skipping training that he once hid inside an armor chest for 2 straight days, and yes, it would have been easier to do the 2 hours of training, but he was proving a point. The attendants check the chest just to make sure he's not hiding in there again, but since they don't find him, they leave to go search elsewhere. However, they fail to notice that Tokiyuki was hanging from the roof above them, so once they are gone, Tokiyuki makes his way down and is greeted by his elder brother who offers him a snack. They both climb up onto the roof to talk for a bit, and Tokiyuki's brother tells him that their father is pretty much useless, so it's for the best if he takes over as shogunate as soon as possible. Tokiyuki asks why his brother can't do it instead since he's the eldest son, but as per customs, since he is the son of a concubine, he can't inherit the position. And besides, he doesn't want to anyway. Just then, the attendants spot Tokiyuki and try to corner him so he has nowhere to run, but Tokiyuki goes, "Hold my dog," before running down the roof and jumping all the way to the adjacent one. He then runs through the compound and out into the Kamakura village where everyone is glad to see him. Tokiyuki eventually loses his attendants again, so he makes his way to a lone cherry blossom tree where he can see the entire village. He loves the village and its people, so he doesn't care about honor or status as long as he is able to live in peace here. People can call him a lazy coward for all he cares because he's fine with it, but all of a sudden, a girl on the ground speaks up and tells Tokiyuki that he's not lazy, nor is he a coward. Those are just small aspects of the monster that lay dormant inside him, or at least, that's what her father says. Tokiyuki is confused by the girl's sudden appearance, but then this dude pops out of nowhere and starts introducing himself. He's a Shinto priest named Yorishite Suwa, and he has been sitting in this tree all day because he predicted that Tokiyuki would show up here, eventually. Suwa seems like he's a little crazy, but he turns the crazy down a bit and tells Tokiyuki that he came to pray for the village, and since he is done, he will be heading to the shogunate to make his report. The girl with him is named Shizuku, and she is good with the secret arts, so he brings her along with him as an unpaid assistant. Tokiyuki is still suspicious of Suwa since no one knows that he likes to come to this tree, so Shizuku explains to him that her father seriously has the ability to see into the future, although his prayers are pretty much a scam. Suwa tells Shizuku that she didn't have to say his prayers were a scam, but to prove his ability to see into the future, he stares into Tokiyuki's soul and sees that in 2 years, Tokiyuki will become a hero who shakes the very foundation of Japan. Some people will worship him, and many others will fear him so much that he will change the fate of the entire country. Tokiyuki doesn't believe any of what Suwa just said, so he runs off since he's not paid enough to deal with strange men like him. He heads back home and tells his brother all about what Suwa said, but he doesn't think it's too far-fetched since Tokiyuki has a superhuman talent for evasion. He personally believes that Tokiyuki would become a hero if a tragedy were to occur. And unfortunately, A tragedy was right around the corner for them, as when Takagi was leading his army into battle, he suddenly turns on them and sliced his companion so fast that it took physics a couple seconds to catch up. Word of Takagi's betrayal reaches Kamakura, and the officials can't believe what they are hearing. Not only has Takagi been secretly conspiring with Emperor Godaigo, he has also wiped out the army that was sent with him, and is on his way here to wipe them out as well. Before long, everyone who Tokiyuki cared about has been slain, and Takagi stands amidst the carnage in sheer ecstasy, because this brings him closer to the voice that guides him to become the ruler above all. As Tokiyuki watches his clan's corpses burn, he hears a familiar voice calling out to him. Suwa says he is here because his father wanted to make sure Tokiyuki would be able to survive. He predicted this tragedy, so he took precautionary measures and already has horses waiting past the hills so they can escape. However, Tokiyuki says he doesn't want to be saved since all of his people are dead, so he just wants to end his life alongside his father and clan. Suwa says he won't allow it since Tokiyuki's life is far too important. But to be honest, Suwa isn't sure if Tokiyuki's survival will actually change anything or not. Kamakura lies in ruin, and Tokiyuki still finds it hard to believe that it's all because of Takagi. They have known each other since Tokiyuki was a toddler, but he now knows that the smile on Takagi's face must have been a lie. Suwa offers to help Tokiyuki get his revenge, but Tokiyuki knows Suwa's smile must be fake as well. And in any case, he doesn't believe he can get revenge against someone like Takagi who destroyed Kamakura so quickly. Regardless of how heinous his acts are, history will inevitably remember him as a hero. So Tokiyuki just wants to die honorably like the rest of his family. Suwa says, "Alright, bet," and then pushes Tokiyuki off the cliffs so he can die as he wanted to. And as Tokiyuki falls to his impending doom, he has a sudden realization that death actually doesn't sound so good anymore, so he grips onto the side of the cliff and uses it to slow his descent and land safely. Upon seeing him, the invading army immediately attempts to kill Tokiyuki, but Tokiyuki's evasion skills are far too great for any of them to even touch him. Tokiyuki makes his way back to the top of the cliff and latches onto Suwa, who then tells him that his ability to survive and run away is what gives him the potential to become a hero, so he is the opposite of Takagi, who became a hero by killing. Of course, it's not possible to win by only running and hiding, which is why Suwa will provide him with all the allies and tools he will need to reach his goal. As long as Tokiyuki is still alive, Takagi will someday come for him. So before then, Tokiyuki needs to become strong enough to defeat him. While Kamakura was being destroyed, Tokiyuki's brother, Kumitoki, was desperately trying to hide from the invaders. But all of a sudden, a man shows up in his hiding spot. However, he is relieved when he sees that it is Munashige, his uncle. He says he came here to rescue Kunitoki, but Kunitoki is still really worried about Tokiyuki. So Munashige reassures him that Tokiyuki is probably safe since they arranged for Suwa to get him to safety. But right now, they need to get themselves to safety before they get spotted. Unfortunately, they get spotted sooner than expected, but Munashige tells Kunitoki that he will handle this, so he should stay here while he goes over to the samurai to talk things out. He says he might be able to convince them that Kunitoki isn't part of the Hojo family since he's not important enough for them to recognize. He makes it clear that was entrusted with protecting Kunitoki, and more importantly, he is the son of his dear sister. So he's going to do everything in his power to make sure he escapes alive, even if he has to lay down his own life. As he approaches the samurai, he tells Kunitoki to run away if things go wrong, but as soon as he starts talking to the samurai, Kunitoki sees Munashige pointing straight at him, and the wicked look on his face means things aren't looking good for Kunitoki. Meanwhile, Tokiyuki is having a nightmare where he sees the tortured faces of his family, and worse yet, he sees an even more terrifying sight: Suwa's face. Suwa is standing over Tokiyuki with his dazzling aura, and he comments on how cute Tokiyuki is while he's asleep. Shizuku comes over, and while she knows how much her uncle loves watching children sleep, Suwa is clearly making Tokiyuki's nightmare worse than it already was. However, Suwa doesn't care and decides to give Tokiyuki a harmless kiss on the cheek, earning him a place on the FBI watch list. Tokiyuki senses some criminal activity about to take place, so when he wakes up and spots Suwa about to kiss him, he jumps out of bed and climbs all the way up to the ceiling in fear. Suwa says he expected as much from Tokiyuki and his escape skills, but when asked to explain himself for trying to kiss Tokiyuki, he responds with, "It's just a prank, bro." Tokiyuki tells him this is no time for pranks since they are still in grave danger. Suwa had said they would be able to hide out in his territory, but they've been stuck in Kamakura for a couple of days now, and they could be discovered any minute now. Suwa says the reason they haven't left yet is because the exit of Kamakura is more tightly guarded than he had thought, so they have to exercise patience until the patrols die down. Tokiyuki recognizes the banners of the patrol, but the samurai under those banners are all people who had previously sworn their allegiance to the shogunate, but ended up betraying their oath and assisting in the destruction of Kamakura, and all of it was done under the orders of Takagi. It is still difficult for him to believe that during all that time Takagi spent with him, he was plotting such traitorous plans. Shizuku tells Tokiyuki that he doesn't have to worry about their safety for now, since if the peril comes to search their hut, then they can easily fool them since their clothes make them all look like priests. Tokiyuki calms down a bit and lets go of the roof, but there's something he would like to ask Suwa. Earlier, Suwa had said something about reclaiming the country with his excellent ability to run away, but samurai are meant to fight while looking straight forward, so he has no idea how he's going to reclaim the country while running away. He wants to know if Suwa truly believes that he can defeat Takagi and avenge everyone that he loved, and Suwa is overwhelmingly positive about it. There is no doubt in his mind that Tokiyuki will become a legendary hero because he foresaw it with his divine eyes. So for now, he asks Tokiyuki to please bear with him until his prophecy becomes a reality. However, until then, he suggests they play a game of dice to pass the time, but while Shizuku and Suwa are busy setting up the game, Tokiyuki runs away. He doesn't think he can trust them if they are so relaxed that they can play a board game, so he decides to take matters into his own hands and find what remains of his home by himself. As he arrives at the scorched remains of the Shogunate Palace, Tokiyuki begins looking around to see if he can find anyone alive, but that's when he hears the voices of two men complaining that all the good stuff around here had already been looted. He realizes it would be bad if he was spotted here, so he starts looking for a good place to hide. But then he hears one of the men talking about an execution that happened this morning involving Kunitoki, and he can't stop himself from yelling that they are lying. He refuses to believe that his brother is dead, but he soon realizes that he messed up, since if these guys figure out that he is the son of the former shogunate, they'll rat him out. The men start asking Tokiyuki who he is, and he doesn't know what to say in this situation, but luckily Suwa and Shizuku show up just in time to cover for him by saying he is just an apprentice at their shrine. They say the shogunate had shown favor to them, and this boy happened to be really close with Kunitoki, which is why he thinks of him as a brother. Tokiyuki goes along with the story and asks the men if they can let him know what happened to Kunitoki, so they tell him that after the destruction of Kamakura, Kunitoki was entrusted to his uncle Munashige to get him to safety, but without a second thought, the man sold his own nephew out the first chance he got, all in hopes of securing a position of power for himself, and he seemed awfully proud about it too. After Kunitoki was captured, since he was a member of the Hojo clan, he was sentenced to death by beheading and was executed this morning. Upon hearing this news, Tokiyuki feels sick to his stomach and keeps muttering the words betrayal to himself. He can't make sense of why the Ashikagi family who had served them for generations would betray them, why their samurai retainers who had been faithful for years suddenly turned their back on them, and now even his uncle has betrayed them. It seems there's no one in the world whom Tokiyuki can trust, and despair is starting to get to him, but he is distracted by the blinding light of Suwa's aura. He tells Tokiyuki that he can see a part of Munashi's future, even if it's really low resolution. In his vision, Munashige is surrounded by a lot of enemy soldiers, but he is well protected. Tokiyuki asks to know where his uncle is right now, so since he is so curious, Suwa agrees to show him. It turns out that he didn't end up getting the position of power he was hoping for, since he basically ended up being reduced to a mere beggar. Munashige complains that he didn't get much of a reward for ratting Kunitoki out, but that may be because Kunitoki was an illegitimate child, so Munashige assumes that he will get treated a lot better if he managed to capture the legitimate child of the shogunate, so he has already begun making plans to capture Tokiyuki and sell him out to the Nida army. At least now, Tokiyuki knows what his first enemy looks like, and that the first step in Suwa's plan win by running away. He says he will explain the next step once they get back to the hideout, but Tokiyuki isn't feeling too confident about the situation, especially considering the fact that he neglected his martial arts training so much, but Suwa assures him that there's no need to worry about it, as he has some allies on their way who will be able to help Tokiyuki. However, these same allies are busy playing Suwa's version of Monopoly, so Tokiyuki can't help but doubt how helpful they will be. After everyone is done with the game, the two allies finally introduce themselves to Tokiyuki, and say their names are Kojiro and Ayako. They are the children of the Nezu and Machizuki families respectively, and both families serve the Suwa family, which by extension means they serve the Hojo family that Tokiyuki belongs to as well. Although both of them are the same age as Tokiyuki, they excel at martial arts, so Suwa encourages Tokiyuki to rely on them to help him get his revenge. A while later, Shizuku asks Kojiro and Ayako what they think of Tokiyuki, and Ayako says she thinks he is really cute, but Kojiro thinks he is pretty weak, so he finds it strange that Suwa asked them to help Tokiyuki. But since Tokiyuki can't fight for himself, they'll just have to protect him then. As night falls, Suwa tells Tokiyuki that it is time to face the demon that's after them, so he hands him a katana to use in battle. At the same time, Shizuku realizes that Munashige is in his way, so everyone gets into position and waits for his arrival. As Munashige shows up, he begins acting like he has been worried about Tokiyuki, and Tokiyuki plays along with it to lure him in for a sneak attack. Munashige asks if Tokiyuki is alone and says they should run away together for Tokiyuki's safety, but now that he is within range, Tokiyuki gives the signal for Kojiro and Ayako to attack. Unfortunately, there was enough time for Munashige to pull out his sword and block their attack, and he now realizes that Tokiyuki planned this ambush to avenge his brother. He didn't expect Tokiyuki to be smart enough to pull something like this off, but there's one thing their plan failed to account for. The reason Kunitoki was entrusted to him wasn't just because he was his uncle, he was appointed as his guard because he is strong. All he needs to do now is kill 2 random brats and chop off Tokiyuki's legs so it can't run away anymore, and once he has done that, he will be able to live the good life. Tokiyuki draws his sword to defend himself, but Munashige is much stronger than him, so he ends up getting blown back. Munashige mocks Tokiyuki for being too weak to avenge his brother by himself, but as he is charging at him, Kojiro jumps in to defend Tokiyuki. However, he too is inferior to Munashige's power. Ayako jumps in next, and she holds her ground for a couple of seconds at first, but then she gets overpowered and flung away. Even with the combined strength of Ayako and Kojiro, they are still gravely outmatched since none of them have got puberty yet, but they are up against a grown man. Munashige breaks away from Kojiro and Ayako so he can go after Tokiyuki again, and as he does so, he talks about how he prides himself on his ability to adapt to whatever situation he is put in. He would gladly murder a child if it was for his survival, just like he did with Kunitoki. He pushed him to the ground and mercilessly beat him till he was half dead so he could sell him out for his freedom, but now he is after Tokiyuki so he can gain some amount of favor with the Nida army. Munashige has backed Tokiyuki up against a cliff, but before Kojiro and Ayako can rush to his aid, Suwa calls out to them and says it's time for them to retreat. They don't understand why Suwa is telling them to retreat, but he just says they should sit back and watch Tokiyuki work his magic, because if anyone here can boast of adaptability, it's him. As Munashige is swinging his sword at Tokiyuki, Tokiyuki begins analyzing his movements and predicting his strikes before they happen. So no matter what Munashige does, he is always one step behind Tokiyuki, and it looks like Tokiyuki is enjoying it too. The way he dodges isn't something that can be learned through training, as it's more like a heaven-sent gift. Suwa believes that Tokiyuki isn't a coward, he just genuinely enjoys being chased. In a situation like this, one mistake could mean instant death, but Tokiyuki's very soul finds joy in such a crisis. During the times when Kamakura was peaceful, Tokiyuki would spend his time dodging his responsibilities, but on the battlefield he becomes an untouchable monster, thriving on near-death evasions. Suwa asks the others if they are interested in serving a master like Tokiyuki now, and Kojiro's opinion has changed for the better. Although, Ayako still just wants to be his friend. They get ready to rejoin the fight, but as they go, Suwa advises them not to waste their effort protecting Tokiyuki. They should just trust that he will be able to evade all danger, but Tokiyuki's attacks are still very weak, so they'll have to make up for that. Munashige is starting to lose his composure since he can't land a hit on Tokiyuki, and that leaves him open for the others to attack. He ends up getting disarmed, but he uses some dirt as a distraction to get away from them. Since they don't need to protect Tokiyuki, they focus their efforts solely on creating an opening for him to strike. So while Munashige is charging at Tokiyuki, Ayako comes up behind him and kicks him to the ground. Munashige then switches targets and tries to use his sword to finish her off, but before Ayako gets slashed, Kojiro disarms Munashige by throwing his sword and knocking him to the ground. And now that Munashige has been disarmed and disoriented, Tokiyuki leaps into the air to deliver the final blow. Munashige's life alone will not be enough to avenge Kunitoki and all the others who were killed in Kamakura, but it's a good start on his quest for revenge. After that, the group makes their way through the forest to get out of Kamakura, and along the way Suwa asks Tokiyuki how it feels now that he's had his first victorious battle. Tokiyuki doesn't really know how to feel about it since he was just focused on running away, and before he knew it, he had already claimed Munashige's head. He knows he couldn't have done it alone, so he faces the others and sincerely thanks them for their help. Suwa takes the opportunity to remind Tokiyuki that he needs 2 things in order to win a war by running away. First, he needs to be a valuable leader to his team, thereby making him a top priority to the enemy, and the second condition is to have allies that can act as his weapon. To fulfill these 2 conditions, Tokiyuki must maintain his pride as a Hojo orphan and become someone that people are drawn to. If he can do those 2 things, and Suwa genuinely believes that Tokiyuki will be able to defeat any demon that comes his way. Tokiyuki says he understands and walks to the edge of the cliff, where he swears that he will someday return to Kamakura to reclaim it from Takagi. He then throws his sword into the forest, and Suwa thinks is a very touching display of commitment, but he recalls seeing a vision that something terrible would happen if Tokiyuki threw his sword from the top of that cliff. Just then, a wolf emerges from the forest with Tokiyuki's sword stabbed in its back, and it's pretty pissed at him, so Tokiyuki makes a run for the hills in record time. They manage to successfully escape Kamakura together, and Tokiyuki begins his journey to becoming the greatest hero in Japan. But once they're in Suwa's territory, Tokiyuki is pushed to his wits' end with Suwa. Shortly after arriving, Tokiyuki became overwhelmed by the sheer number of maidens Suwa had assigned to him. But Suwa innocently says he just asked them to look after Tokiyuki, make him breakfast, and give him some special physical contact to make him feel better. But it was too much for Tokiyuki to handle, so he tried to run away. However, his attempts to flee led him to fall into this random hole, and it's because Suwa foresaw the future, where Tokiyuki would be running away from the girls along this road, so he dug a hole ahead of time to trap him. Tokiyuki still doesn't believe that Suwa can really see into the future, but Suwa says that since this place is full of holy energy, his divine visions get a huge boost, meaning no matter how hard Tokiyuki tries to run or hide, Suwa will know exactly where he is. After all, this is his expanded domain, the Suwa Grand Shrine. And now that he has explained things, it's time for Tokiyuki to begin his training arc. Tokiyuki still hates training, so he tries to make an excuse that he is still getting used to his new life here. But Suwa doesn't care, so Tokiyuki tries running away. Unfortunately, within Suwa's domain, all escape attempts are nullified by Suwa's foresight. Suwa gloats to Tokiyuki over him falling for another one of his traps, but Tokiyuki just wants to be let out, so Shizuku comes over and brings him a ladder. She apologizes for her father's behavior, as she knows all too well how annoying he can be, but she assures Tokiyuki that Suwa is harmless most of the time. As Tokiyuki climbs out of the hole, he thinks about how he should feel grateful to Suwa for saving his life, but he finds it hard to believe that Suwa actually knows what he is doing. Suwa's shrine is relatively small as well compared to the others, so he doubts Suwa actually has the means to help him reclaim Kamakura and defeat Takagi when the time comes, so he sees no point in practicing. Several days later, Suwa still hasn't gotten Tokiyuki to take his practice seriously, and everyone has gotten tired of digging holes to catch him, so they start complaining that Tokiyuki behaves like a spoiled brat. Suwa corrects them and says that Tokiyuki is actually an earnest person at heart, but he was raised to be a puppet ruler, so he has never had any real reason to put effort into improving himself. And the fault for his current behavior partially lies with Suwa, since he is just now realizing that he hasn't done anything to show Tokiyuki that he has the power to help him reclaim Kamakura. On this particular day, Tokiyuki has run into the forest since no one would expect him to leave on a rainy day, but it turns out he was wrong about that as Suwa shows up right behind him moments later. He already knows what Suwa is going to ask him to do, so he tells him that he doesn't see the reason why he should bother learning things like strategies of war when all he is going to be doing is running away on the battlefield even if Suwa's army is getting slain. Suwa promises Tokiyuki that there is no way that he can lose because he is a true god, and to prove it to him, he says he will stop the rain. Tokiyuki still doesn't believe anything Suwa is saying, but as Suwa rings his bell in the rain, it looks like he wasn't lying because all the raindrops stop midair and converge around Suwa before disappearing entirely. After that, Suwa calls on his soldiers with Spartan energy, showing Tokiyuki that he has an army of soldiers 10,000 strong who are ready to assemble at any moment. If Tokiyuki were to gain the qualities of a hero, that would mean there is an alliance between a hero and a god, and many more soldiers are sure to join their cause at that point. Having demonstrated his power, Suwa asks Tokiyuki what he plans to do now, and Tokiyuki reluctantly says he is willing to go back to his desk and start studying. He has decided to trust Suwa since he now believes he can become a hero with his help. However, as soon as Tokiyuki has said these words, Suwa tells everyone that they are free to go home now. Tokiyuki can't believe what he's seeing and asks Suwa where all that Spartan energy went, but Suwa just says his people can't be so energetic all the time. He then changes the topic and tells Tokiyuki that it's time to go study, whether he likes it or not. But as he is driving him off, he accidentally falls for one of his own traps. A while later, Tokiyuki has started getting used to life in Suwa's domain, so Suwa tells him it's time for him to acquire some retainers. A retainer is a vassal who forms a master-servant relationship with their lord and risks their life fighting for him. A ruler is nothing without his retainers, but since Tokiyuki tragically lost all of his family members and retainers, he has to start from nothing, so Suwa will introduce the candidates once more. First is Kojiro, the greatest swordsman of Tokiyuki's generation, and with his skill, he would be perfect for leading as Tokiyuki's military commander. Next is Ayaka with her unrivaled strength and artistic talent, plus even when in battle she remains as cheery as ever. Finally, we have Shizuku, who is attentive and well-versed in several secret arts, so as a servant, she would be great at taking care of the general affairs at home. All three of them may be as young as Tokiyuki, but Suwa assures him that they are people that he can count on. However, Tokiyuki still needs to get to know them and demonstrate that he is capable of making good use of their skills. If the four of them live together, then eventually, Tokiyuki will have a tight-knit relationship with them, and from there, he can recruit more talented individuals as they come across them. This is what Suwa likes to call the beginning of a hero's journey, but none of the others care about his reference. After Suwa has stopped talking, Kojiro asks Tokiyuki if he needs them to do something since they are happy to help him in any way possible. Tokiyuki is glad to hear they want to help him, but he doesn't really know what to have them do, so he ultimately asks to have fun with them by playing tag. However, Kojiro instantly refuses to do it. They've all seen Tokiyuki run, so a game of tag would be nothing but torture for them, but since Tokiyuki wants to have fun, Kojiro suggests that they all sneak into the homes of some of the samurai who betrayed Tokiyuki and take a fat dump on their doorstep. Ayako says she just wants to do push-ups, and Shizuku says she wants to stuff marbles down an anthill. They all have their own unique/disturbing ideas of fun, so Tokiyuki has no idea what to do until Ayako suggests they go hunting as a group. It's fun, it counts as training, and it doesn't involve pooping in anyone's home either, so Tokiyuki is fine with it. But he asks if Shizuku is allowed to go hunting since she's part of the shrine. Fortunately, she says it's not a problem since the god of the shrine is a god of hunting, so unlike other shrines, they hunt and eat meat a lot. After they leave, an attendant heads over to Suwa, while he's grilling some meat to inform him that Tokiyuki and the others have all gone out on a hunting trip. But he already saw that in a vision, as well as the trouble they will face in the forest, but it will be good character development, so he won't interfere. Meanwhile, out in the forest, the group is working together to hunt with Shizuku scaring the rabbit and Tokiyuki being tasked with shooting it, but he sucks at aiming, so he missed a clear shot at the rabbit. Kojiro says that the shot was impressively close, considering the fact that it was Tokiyuki who shot it, so he wants to give him a better line of sight so he can try again. He chops away at the tree branches effortlessly, and once there's a clear line of sight, he tells Tokiyuki to give it another shot, but before he can do so, Ayako frickin' chucks a boulder at the rabbit, and Tokiyuki is horrified by the power she possesses. But this isn't the first time Kojiro has seen Ayako turn a rabbit into a red splat on the ground. However, this time she missed the target, so the rabbit lives to see another day. But that life doesn't last long as it gets chomped by a huge boar. Kojiro has never seen a beast so huge, so Shizuku informs them of a rumor that was going around about a flesh-eating demon boar living in these woods. This is the trouble Suwa foresaw them getting into, but he believes it is important they learn to deal with bloodthirsty beasts because Takagi is far worse than anything they could encounter in that forest. As the demon spots the group, it charges straight at Tokiyuki, so Ayako pulls him to safety while Kojiro fires a shot at it, but the demon's hide is too thick to pierce with his arrows, so he calls for everyone to retreat to high ground. Kojiro doesn't think they can defeat the demon with just the two of them, so he suggests they run away back to the shrine. But Shizuku interrupts and says she thinks they can win this battle. She's conveniently saying this from the safety of a treetop, but she suggests that the others leave Tokiyuki to evade the demon while he leads towards that tree over there. And that's where Kojiro and Ayako will be waiting to take it out. Everyone is on board with the idea, aside from Tokiyuki, who's being used as bait. However, he doesn't have time to protest since the demon has already circled back and is coming after him again. He can't believe his retainers would actively put him in danger, but it's hard to argue with the plan's effectiveness when Tokiyuki is evading the demon so well. While he's leading the demon to the designated spot, Kojiro and Ayako prepare their means of attack, which involves shattering a piece of obsidian at the edge of the cliff, and once the preparations are ready, Tokiyuki asks them what he's supposed to do with the demon. Kojiro fires an arrow at it to face to get it to charge at them instead. As the demon is headed straight for them, they jump out of the way and bait it to ram into the tree and go flying off the side of the cliff, straight onto the obsidian spike. With that, the demon was defeated, and it was honestly a lot easier than Tokiyuki had expected. Once they saw that a bow wouldn't work, they all worked with each other's strengths to take down the demon, but even though it attacked them first, Shizuku still feels bad for it since it was likely a beast from ancient times, and if it had others of its kind around, then maybe it wouldn't have succumbed to evil. After their successful hunt, the team goes to the hot spring to cool off, and Kojiro suggests that the team should meet up here for strategy meetings from now on. Speaking of which, they need to decide on a name for their team, so they start coming up with a bunch of terrible names like the Sweet Tooth Travelers, which Tokiyuki immediately rejects. Their terrible naming sense aside, Tokiyuki is glad to have people like them around since they treat him like a friend to cheer him up, but they also treat him as their lord. Eventually, Ayako comes up with a name that doesn't suck, so from now on they will be known as the Elusive Warriors. After their bath, they all head back to the beast to cook it for dinner, but by the time they get there, Suwa has already completely devoured it somehow. Kojiro yells at Suwa for eating the whole catch, but he tries to justify it by saying the beast had succumbed to evil, so he was just purifying it with his divine stomach, but they aren't falling for his excuse though. Meanwhile, it looks like there's another person who can see visions of the future, and he knows Suwa is plotting something, so he's not going to let him get away with it. And at the same time, Takagi is currently to meet with Emperor Godaigo, and the Emperor is greatly pleased with him for destroying Kamakura in such a thorough manner, so he offers to let Takagi have any position he wants in the imperial court. Takagi says he is grateful for the offer, but he is a warrior at heart, so political power isn't his thing. However, the retainers behind him would be more than happy to take positions in the imperial court, and you can already tell from their faces that they are definitely not going to abuse their power. Everyone in the Emperor's palace thinks highly of Takagi since he was the sole reason the Emperor is now in power, so from their perspective, he's a god-sent hero. As Takagi's most trusted retainer, Morono, is helping him change, he has something on his mind that has been bothering him. He has been serving Takagi since they were children, so when Takagi decided to switch to the Emperor's side, Morono followed him without a second thought. However, it worries him that recently, Takagi's smile has become less and less human. Takagi smiles and tells him to stop saying stupid things since he needs Morono's help to bring support to the Emperor, but something is clearly not right with Takagi and Morono knows it, but he can't do anything to stop it. While on a hunting trip, one of Takagi's retainers shoots down a boar, and while Takagi is inspecting it, the retainer thanks him for the recommendation Takagi gave as it allowed him to be appointed as a governor. Takagi says it was a fitting reward since the retainer was the first one to betray the Hojo family and join Takagi's side, but within the retainer's territory is Shinano, and Takagi knows Suwa was one of the Hojo family's greatest supporters, so he is bound to be hiding some survivors in his territory, and he wants Sadamune to find and kill them. Sadamune says he is up to the task, as his eyes are the best in the land, so he's sure to spot any Hojo survivors. Meanwhile, Tokiyuki is finally training to use a sword, but he still sucks at it, and the others can barely believe that he can't cut a straw bundle. Suwa explains that Tokiyuki's muscles are so used to escaping that even when he is on the offensive, he is still instinctively pulling away. Kojiro tells Tokiyuki that he needs to put his back into it and train diligently, but Suwa says that's a bad idea since if Tokiyuki trains too much, his running away muscles will turn to attack muscles and then you'll have a mediocre swordsman with mediocre evasion skills. They move on from sword practice and test out Tokiyuki's archery, and surprisingly, he has great aim. Tokiyuki reveals that his father liked watching archery practice a lot, so he often took practice seriously and got pretty good at it. Since Tokiyuki shows promise with his archery abilities, Suwa decides that they'll put all their efforts into maximizing his archery skills. After all, soldiers would end up losing morale if all their commander did was run away, so Tokiyuki needs to learn a way to attack while he's running away. But it's not going to be easy to find an instructor who can teach him such an unorthodox method of fighting. Just then, someone comes to inform Suwa that Sadamune has come to pay them a surprise visit. Tokiyuki has never heard of Sadamune before, so they assume he must have been someone without much social standing, but just to be safe, Suwa asks Tokiyuki and the others to all go and hide in the shed for now. Suwa heads to the front gate to greet Sadamune, and Sadamune wastes no time informing Suwa that he has been appointed governor of Shinano, which makes him Suwa's boss now. One of the Suwa family members finds this hard to believe since not long ago Sadamune was working for them. But things change, and as the shogunate was falling, Sadamune made the wise decision to switch to Emperor Godaigo's side, and that earned him a favor. Meanwhile, the Suwa family supported the Hojo family, so now that Godaigo is in charge, they have no right to complain about any consequences they face. But that's an issue for another day. For now, Sadamune came to tell Suwa that if he has any Hojo family members hiding within his territory, he had better hand them over to him. Suwa denies hiding anyone. In fact, he denies ever having seen any Hojo family members. Sadamune doesn't believe him, so he uses his superhuman vision to spot every suspicious-looking person in the area. He sees two soldiers in the distance watching from behind a tree. He sees a man clutching a knife in his jacket, and he sees a bunch of children hiding in a cabin. He doesn't know which one of them is the Hojo survivor, but they all look pretty suspicious to him, so sooner or later he will find out who it is and catch them. That's all he wanted to say, so Sadamune turns to leave, but before he does, he has to abuse his power at least once, so he takes a shot at one of the shrine maidens and cuts her ear just for the sake of it. Later that night, Shizuku informs everyone that the shrine maidens who got shot is okay, and her ear should be able to heal soon enough. Sadamune is an expert archer, and thanks to his superhuman vision and observational skill, he has a major edge when compared to other archers. It seems like they've got a really troublesome person as their governor, and Kojiro especially doesn't like him for doing something as dirty as aiming at a simple shrine maiden. He asks Tokiyuki what he thinks about the situation, but while Tokiyuki agrees that Sadamune is a bug-eyed creep, he has to admit that Sadamune's archery was beautiful. Suwa understands that Tokiyuki recognizes talent in spite of a person's character, and that attitude will surely be useful to him once he becomes a general, but more importantly, Suwa has just found the perfect instructor for Tokiyuki. He then tells Tokiyuki that he's going to have to play a game of hide and seek with Sadamune to further his training. Sadamune has two goals right now, and those are to find Tokiyuki and to weaken the influence of the Suwa family by doing so. Meanwhile, Tokiyuki will also have two goals to accomplish. He needs to stay hidden from Sadamune, whether it be by concealing his presence or by hiding his identity, while also absorbing knowledge about Sadamune's archery technique. Sadamune is bound to abuse his newfound power as governor every chance he gets, so there will be plenty of opportunities to learn from him. Tokiyuki finds the idea exciting, so a plan is put in motion to lure Sadamune back to the shrine, and it doesn't take long either, as the moment Sadamune learns that there is a dog shooting competition being held in Suwa's shrine, he plans to crash the party in an attempt to provoke while searching for the Hojo survivor. On the day of the competition, everyone is having a good time except Kojiro, who couldn't manage to shoot a single dog. Tokiyuki is up next, so Shizuki wishes him good luck, but Suwa reminds her that she can't use Tokiyuki's real name right now since it could lead to Sadamune realizing who he is. Instead, Suwa tells her to use an alias when referring to Tokiyuki, so she starts blushing and asks if she can call Tokiyuki Big Brother from now on. There's an awkward silence after that, so Shizuku runs away and Tokiyuki has no idea what just happened, but he doesn't have time to think about it as moments later, Kojiro comes running over to tell Tokiyuki that Sadamune has shown up. He just driven unannounced and says he wants to participate, and of course, Suwa has no right to refuse his wishes since he is the governor. Sadamune is allowed to participate, so he is informed of the rules of the game, being that each contestant is only allowed to have 5 non-lethal arrows and scoring will be done based on the spot the arrow strikes, and the posture used to fire the arrow. He begins his round, so the dogs are released and Sadamune begins firing at them with pristine accuracy. Tokiyuki is majorly impressed by Sadamune's flawless technique and aim, but Suwa is over in the corner in fear. However, it's not because of Sadamune, it's because he just looked into the future and saw that firing arrows at dogs is considered animal abuse in the 2000s, so he's trying to rationalize the fact that he may get cancelled for holding the competition, even if the arrows are non-lethal. After Sadamune is done taking his shots, he asks the arbiter what his current position is, and unsurprisingly, he is informed that he is now in first place. Sadamune mocks the people of Suwa's territory for being bested by a surprise contestant, but the people defiantly tell him that there are still many strong archers here that could beat him. But Sadamune doesn't seem convinced, so he wants to make a bet with Suwa. He will have a one-on-one match with any archer in Suwa's territory, and if he wins, then Sadamune will be allowed to search the homes of every person whom he deems to be suspicious, with no repercussions no matter what crimes he commits in the process. Kojiro is enraged that Sadamune would propose such an unfair bet, but Suwa says they can oppose him too carelessly since he was appointed by the Emperor as governor. However, if he makes his intentions clear with a bet, it makes things easier for Suwa. Suwa accepts Sadamune's bet, but by the conditions Sadamune set, if Suwa's side wins, then Sadamune will not be allowed, nor will he have any authority to search their territory anymore. Sadamune is laughing to himself over how stupid Suwa was to accept the bet since there's no way anyone here could ever beat him. And after he has won, if he ends up finding the Hojo survivor, then he will have good reason to label Suwa as a criminal and have him executed. And from there, he can do whatever he wants with Suwa's territory. Since they've agreed on the bet, Sadamune asks which strong warrior he will be facing. Suwa says they don't need a strong warrior to defeat the likes of Sadamune, which is why he's sending out a child instead. Both Sadamune and Tokiyuki are shocked by Suwa's choice, but Suwa introduces Tokiyuki as Chojumaru and says he is the least competent person they have, so it should be fair to Sadamune if he completes. Sadamune is fuming at this point, but Suwa goes on to say it would be boring to handle things the normal way, which is why he suggests that the contestants be allowed to shoot at each other as well. Of course, Sadamune is free to refuse if he wants, but only if he's fine with being known as a bitch that is. The others try to get Suwa to stop provoking Sadamune since Tokiyuki's combat prowess is nowhere near good enough to back up Suwa's claims. And frankly, they don't understand why he would make Tokiyuki go up against Sadamune in the first place. Suwa explains that this is a great chance to speed up Tokiyuki's training arcs. It's going up against a master, it's a prime opportunity to learn. and Suwa has already seen a vision of the future, which says if Tokiyuki goes through with the contest, then a bright future full of growth awaits him, and more importantly, after the battle, he is guaranteed to learn a cool new skill. Although Tokiyuki still doesn't seem convinced, Suwa breaks it down and asks Tokiyuki what choices he wants to make. As a general of Hojo, he can choose the dangerous option and grow as a fighter, or he can run away and avoid his problems altogether. When Suwa puts it like that, there's only one clear answer Tokiyuki can give. He has already decided that he will kill Takagi in the future, and if he wants to accomplish that, he can't run away from a challenge like this. Tokiyuki gets on his horse to await the starting whistle, and as the competition begins, Sadamune has the option of just going after the dogs for a safe win, but he felt insulted by the fact that he was challenged by a kid, so he decides to shoot at Tokiyuki. Instead, however, as he raises his bow to aim, Tokiyuki has already fired a shot at him. And while Sadamune managed to dodge it, he is incredibly pissed now. This was part of a plan Tokiyuki discussed with Suwa ahead of time, and the first shot didn't necessarily need to hit Sadamune, it just needed to make him angry enough to focus all his attention on Tokiyuki, no matter what. Once Sadamune's attention is gotten, he will focus all his efforts on striking Tokiyuki with his arrows, so Tokiyuki just needs to dodge. Sadamune doesn't fire rapidly, so Tokiyuki has some time to earn himself some points, and to help with this, Suwa informs Tokiyuki about the red dog, which was trained to be an easy target. Tokiyuki misses the first time, but he manages to hit the dog on his second attempt and earns 1 point. From here, Tokiyuki just needs to make sure Sadamune doesn't earn any points. Eventually, Sadamune is down to his last arrow, and it is at this point that he will probably start aiming for the dogs again to make sure he doesn't lose. And while he is aiming, that's the moment when Tokiyuki should strike. However, while that was the plan, Sadamune defied Suwa's expectations by continuing to target Tokiyuki from his blind spot. And the second he saw an opening in Tokiyuki's defenses, he fires his last arrow and strikes him in the head, earning Sadamune 5 points. He is now in the lead by a wide margin, so he is confident that he will win as long as he stops Tokiyuki from making any good shots from now on. Tokiyuki takes a moment to inspect the wound on his head, and he realizes that if this were a real arrow, that he would have already been dead, and the odds of competition are stacked against him at this point. But rather than scaring him into giving up, the thought of his life hanging by a wire only excites him more. Tokiyuki tries to aim for a dog to earn some more points, but Sadamune keeps using his horse to knock Tokiyuki off balance and prevent him from aiming. The people are starting to believe there is no way for Tokiyuki to win, but Suwa's light begins shining as he yells out that Tokiyuki must combine his evading and shooting abilities if he wants to be able to beat Sadamune. It was a simple statement, but it made all the difference for Tokiyuki, because it's also clear to him now. When he evades, he can keep track of everything around him. So he knows that if he aims at a dog now, Sadamune will ram into him from his blind spot without a doubt. And it's impossible for Tokiyuki to hit a small moving target while evading Sadamune at the same time, but there's still one target that's big enough for him to shoot at in a split second. Tokiyuki takes an arrow and begins aiming at a dog to bait Sadamune into approaching him, and once Sadamune is within range, he turns around to aim at him instead. However, his position makes it difficult for Tokiyuki to line up the shot. Sadamune believes there's no way Tokiyuki can twist his body enough to get a good shot while he's mounted on his horse. But there's a simple solution for Tokiyuki. He just dismounts the horse and takes the shot at Sadamune's neck, knocking him off his horse and earning Tokiyuki 2 points. Suwa points out that a backward shot like that is only possible thanks to Tokiyuki's keen sense of balance and agile marksmanship. The others are really impressed with Tokiyuki, and it is officially decided that Tokiyuki's special move will be delivering back shots. And Suwa finds it funny, since he saw into a future where back shots mean something very different. Tokiyuki now only has 1 arrow left to fire, and Sadamune has fallen off his horse, so he is an easy target right now. However, since the score is still 3-5, Sadamune can still win if he prevents Tokiyuki from hitting a vital point with his arrow. He covers his head and throat in preparation for Tokiyuki's next shot, but as he approaches, Tokiyuki doesn't fire his arrow, instead jumping over Sadamune to deliver a signature back shot. Technically, it's called the Parthian shot and was popularized by the Parthians, who used this technique to defeat Rome on horseback. However, we'll call Tokiyuki's version a back shot. That last shot earned Tokiyuki 3 points, so he now has 6 points and has defeated Sadamune against all odds. Now that Tokiyuki has won, Suwa reminds Sadamune of the bet he agreed to, meaning from now on, he can no longer meddle in the affairs of the Suwa Shrine. Sadamune refuses to accept his loss and says the game was nothing more than entertainment, and Suwa sided with the Hojo family during the attack, so Sadamune could seize his land if he wants to. However, he still honors the bet and leaves the Suwa Shrine. But he still can't understand why Suwa would bring out a random kid to play for such an important bet. There was no way Suwa could guarantee that the kid would win, and now that he thinks about it, that kid had a sense of nobility to him, so Sadamune is starting to think that he might have been a part of the Hojo family. However, he quickly dismisses the idea because there's no way Suwa would be crazy enough to risk the kid's safety like that. Meanwhile, after Suwa is done risking Tokiyuki's life, he takes steps to ensure Tokiyuki's safety by arranging for people to spread rumors about him all over the country. This way, the soldiers will be forced to go investigate all of the rumors, and that will take attention away from Tokiyuki's training here so he can grow stronger undisturbed. Meanwhile, in a little hut in the forest, a man is on his deathbed while his son watches over him. The man tells his son about how he had a special set of skills, but the better he got at it, the more suspicious people got of him, until eventually his lord accused him of stealing and had him banished. Now in his final moments, he wishes to have his son carry on his principles and teachings, and before he dies, he has only one more thing he wants to teach his son. Bitches may leave you, and your homies may desert you, but there's one thing you can always trust, and that's money, son. Now get out there and use your skills to make some money. Genba took his father's words to heart, so he dons the mask to begin his career as a thief. The next day in the Suwa Shrine, Tokiyuki is struggling with having to do physical labor for the first time in his life. He doesn't understand why he is doing this if it isn't part of his training, but Suwa explains that since Tokiyuki is pretending to be one of the shrine's workers, it would be strange if he didn't have to do any chores, and they can't afford to draw any suspicion in case the enemy shows back up. However, the only enemy that could show up would be Sadamune, and Kojiro doubts Sadamune would show his face here again and after the humiliation he faced yesterday. Yet, as they look towards the gate, Sadamune is standing right there with a creepy smile on his face. After yesterday, Sadamune decided to be petty, so he went to the Emperor and got an imperial command, and he takes great pleasure in reading it out to everyone. It says the Empire has deemed Suwa and his people to be traitors for siding with the Hojo family, so as punishment, they will be forced to forfeit a portion of his land to Sadamune. Sadamune laughs as he tells Suwa that he only has 10 days to have everyone who lives on that land relocate, but he pauses for a second to glare at Tokiyuki, since he is still holding a grudge over the archery contest. That night, Suwa holds a meeting with all his retainers, and they are understandably outraged by the situation Sadamune has put them in. They've been tirelessly cultivating this land for generations, so they aren't willing to give it up without a fight, but Suwa tells them that this is not the time to act yet. Sadamune has an imperial decree, and if they defy an imperial order, they will become enemies of the court, and that would lead to their destruction before Tokiyuki's training has been completed. He asks them all to be patient and wait for the right time, but for now, they can't do anything. He brings the meeting to a close and tells everyone to return to their homes, but he asks Tokiyuki to stay behind because he has something he wants to discuss with him. Once they are alone, Tokiyuki asks Suwa what he plans to do about Sadamune because at this rate, the people here will lose a lot of their homes and farms to him. Suwa thinks it's great that Tokiyuki is concerned about giving the people justice, but a sense of justice is not always enough to get things done. Suwa tells Tokiyuki that he has been thinking about adding a new member to the elusive warriors, particularly the thief named Genba. Tokiyuki is perplexed that Suwa wants to add a thief to the team, but Suwa makes a good point since a thief uses all sorts of tricks to obtain their target and can get in and out of location undetected. Tokiyuki is impressed by the skill Genba supposedly possesses, but he still doesn't understand why Suwa wants to enlist Genba, so Suwa explains that he has something he'd like Genba to do for him. He wants to get Genba to steal the Imperial command from Sadamune's residence. That sounds crazy to Tokiyuki, but according to the informant Suwa has in Kyo, it takes longer than it does at the DMV to get an Imperial command issued, so if they manage to make Sadamune's go missing, it will buy them a bit of time. Tokiyuki thinks stealing is wrong, and yes it is, but it's only illegal if you get caught. Tokiyuki is going to learn that even criminals can become useful retainers, so he leaves for the night, and as he goes, Suwa's assistant asks him if it's really alright to send Tokiyuki and the others to find Genba on their own. Suwa thinks it will be fine since Tokiyuki may be a child, but he still has the makings of a capable lord. The next day, Tokiyuki and the others have arrived at the village where Genba is from, so they get the attention of some people nearby and tell them that they are trying to find him. The people are nice and seem eager to help Tokiyuki and his friends, but the second they hear the name Genba, they all briefly unlock the Speed Force and run back to their homes so they don't have to get involved with Genba. And I can see why, because Genba sneaks up on Tokiyuki and the others as soon as he heard his name being mentioned. Tokiyuki is scared out of his mind, so Kojiro and Ayako come to his aid. However, Genba has already jumped into a tree, and so has Tokiyuki. Genba tells them that he heard that they are looking for him, so he would like to know what business they have with him. Tokiyuki speaks up and says he is from Suwa's shrine and wants to add Genba as one of his retainers, but Jemba knows all about Tokiyuki being a Hojo family survivor, and he could get a lot of money if he sold Tokiyuki out to Satamune. But before the others try attacking him, he tells them to calm down since there's still room to negotiate. And while they weren't looking, he also managed to steal all their wallets, so Tokiyuki is already impressed with Jemba's skill. But earning Jemba's cooperation isn't cheap. Jemba says he wants to be paid 5 million yen's worth of money for not selling Tokiyuki out to Satamune, and another 5 million yen for every task Tokiyuki asks him to perform. Tokiyuki is shocked that Jemba is asking for money, and Jemba believes Tokiyuki's shock is due to the fact that he doesn't want to pay that much. However, the real reason is because Tokiyuki thinks a reward like that is too little for Jemba. To be honest, he was willing to offer Jemba a province or something once he reclaimed Kamakura. After all, he would be a distinguished vassal who made great contributions. But since all he's asking for is money, Tokiyuki thinks Jemba is being very humble. Jemba is confused and doesn't know what to think, so Shizuku goes up to him and assures him that Suwa Shrine will ensure payment for Jemba's daily expenses, but she asks if he is sure he just wants money. After all, if Tokiyuki grants Jemba a province, he could gain several times the amount he asked for, and much more. And Kojiro mentions that Jemba helping Tokiyuki now would earn him a lifetime of support from the future ruler, so isn't it a gamble worth taking? Jemba runs away to get them to stop whispering things in his ear, and while he was initially hoping to swindle some money out of Tokiyuki, he says he is fine helping him out for now. But he has one condition if Tokiyuki wants him to steal the Satamune's Imperial Command. He's not willing to risk his life alone for a lord he doesn't trust yet, so he will only do it if Tokiyuki comes with him. As they approach Satamune's compound, they spot the warehouse where Satamune likely kept the Imperial Command. Jemba is surprised that Tokiyuki was willing to come along, but Tokiyuki believes it's only fair that he joined Jemba since this was Tokiyuki's request to begin with. That's all well and good, but Jemba reminds Tokiyuki that if he's not careful, he will end up like the other thieves who got caught trying to steal from Satamune. The shed is secured with 3 locks, and Jemba can easily pick his way through them, but the real problem here is the security posted out front. Fortunately, Jemba knows exactly how to get past them. He runs out into the field and uses a branch to vault his way into the compound, and once he's in, he throws a rope to Tokiyuki so he can break in as well, and Tokiyuki seems a little too excited to be committing a crime. Jemba wonders why he is so willing to do this, so Tokiyuki explains that he is doing it to repay his debt to the Suwa family for the support they've given him, so it's the honorable thing to do for him to do. However, Jemba thinks that's a stupid reason since things like honor and kindness will never get you far in life because people can always betray you. But if you use money and fear, you can get someone to do whatever you want. For instance, there was once a woman who refused to pay Jemba after she asked him to investigate her cheating husband, so as revenge, Jemba snuck into her house and did unspeakable things to her rice. That aside, Jemba tells Tokiyuki to wait here while he handles business, so Tokiyuki does as he says. But he soon hears Satamune's voice nearby, so he starts panicking as it may be possible that Jemba set him up to be captured. However, the Satamune goes up to the guards and tells them to go fix some nails on the fence all the way across the compound from the shed. The guards ask why since their job is to guard the shed, but Satamune is their boss, so they are forced to obey. As you probably guessed, that was really Jemba wearing a disguise, and he explains that his mask has special properties that allow him to disguise himself as pretty much anyone. As he and Tokiyuki are looking for the Imperial Command, Jemba mentions that he knows Tokiyuki doesn't trust him after all. No one would trust a subordinate who can steal anything, even Tokiyuki's identity. So why would Tokiyuki, who has already been betrayed by millions of soldiers, ever share trust with someone like him? While this is going on, Tokiyuki and Jemba have been found out by one of Satamune's subordinates with inbuilt radar hearing. And after realizing that there are intruders within the compound, he gets ready to go thief hunting. As the guards begin to close in on the shed, Jemba realizes that they have been found out, and if they don't get out of here soon, they are going to be surrounded. They got the Imperial Command, so Jemba gets ready to leave, but he has no obligation to protect Tokiyuki, so he tells him that he needs to keep up if he doesn't want to get captured. As Tsukfusa and the other retainers are about to barge into the shed, Jemba busts out of the roof with Tokiyuki and throws a smoke bomb to blind his pursuers. Normally, this would have been a foolproof way to escape since none of the guards can tell where Tokiyuki or Jemba are. However, Sakafusa is able to hear them perfectly, so he takes a bow and pinpoints their location as they were trying to scale the fence. He fires an arrow straight at Tokiyuki, but since he isn't Satamune, he sucks at archery and misses his target. Thanks to Tsukfusa's blunder, Tokiyuki and Jemba manage to make it over the fence, and once they do, they give Kojiro and Ayako the signal to ride away as a detection. The guards see the horses ride off in the distance and they all begin to chase after them, but Sakafusa waits behind because he notices something no one else was able to realize. He heard the sound of two children climbing the fence, and then he heard the sound of horses running away, but there was never any sound of the two thieves on foot. This leads him to the conclusion that the thieves must be hiding somewhere close by while holding their breath. He doesn't know exactly where they are since they aren't making any sound, but the second they slip up, he will be able to pinpoint their location and cut them down. Genba is starting to feel the pressure now, and he is incredibly frustrated that Sufusa is here because all his stealth techniques rely on illusions and shadows, and those won't work on Sufusa. He is really regretting the time he wasted messing with Tokiyuki. But when it comes down to it, he has no real reason to care about Tokiyuki, so he's gonna ditch him. Tokiyuki looks over at Genba in horror, but not because Genba was trying to leave him, but rather because Genba was dumb enough to move while Sufusa is so close to them. Almost immediately, Sufusa locates Genba and attempts to behead him on the spot, but at the last second, Tokiyuki jumps in and saves him from certain death. In the process, Tokiyuki gets slashed and Sufusa gets the blade stuck in a tree, and luckily, that means Tokiyuki wasn't badly cut by the sword. However, he and Genba only have a couple of seconds before Sufusa catches back up to them. Tokiyuki tells Genba to get moving, but as they are running, Genba can't figure out why Tokiyuki would risk himself to save Genba, especially after Genba tried to abandon him. Tokiyuki responds that he doubted Genba earlier for no reason, and he can't apologize properly for that if Genba dies. He knows his mental fortitude is low, and he may end up doubting Genba again, but he wants to make it clear that he will never betray Genba. He likes learning the art of escape from Genba, and with his help he is able to evade strong demons like never before, so he can't help but get excited. So if Genba ever feels cornered or feels like betrayal is the only option, Tokiyuki wants Genba to escape together with him. Tokiyuki has been betrayed by countless people, yet he has never betrayed anyone himself. So in an era when deception and betrayal are commonplace, he could be seen as the most devoted general. At the same time, Sadamune has begun chasing after the little thieves, but his immaculate vision is of no use to him out in the dark like this. Luckily, Sufusa is here to help, even if he is making this a little weird. At the same time, Genba and Tokiyuki emerge from some bushes, and Genba says he had hidden horses at the edge of the woods in preparation for their escape. But unfortunately, with all the blood Tokiyuki is losing, he won't be able to go on for much longer. Just then, an arrow comes flying out of nowhere straight at Tokiyuki, and while Tokiyuki manages to evade it, the arrow splits a nearby tree in half. Genba is shocked by the power of the shot, and Tokiyuki immediately recognizes the power as Sadamune's. Genba can't believe it since Sadamune shouldn't be able to see them well enough to fire such a precise shot at them, and it's still going to take a while before they reach the horses to escape. Tokiyuki is in no condition to run right now, and Genba can't escape Sadamune's arrows while carrying Tokiyuki, so he has to make a very difficult decision. He could have ignored it if it were anybody else, but Tokiyuki has proven that he is someone who is worth serving, so Genba is going to do everything in his power to defend Tokiyuki. Sufusa has been guiding Sadamune's arrows so he can aim in the dark, and just when they were about to target the wounded Tokiyuki, Genba comes out of hiding and gets their attention. Sufusa recognizes Genba's mask, so he informs Sadamune that the thief in front of them must be Kazama Genba, the son of a former retainer who was exiled for his deceptive techniques, and now, after his father's death, Genba has turned to thievery. Sadamune recalls that the Kazama family was under Suwa's territory, so he assumes Suwa must have asked Genba to come here and steal his imperial command. Genba pretends that he has no idea what Sadamune is talking about and says he just came here because he felt like messing with Sadamune. Sadamune is about to take a shot at him, but Genba kicks the tree, causing a flock of birds to fly off in all different directions. The noise overwhelms Sufusa's sense of hearing, and while Genba may not know much about using deadly force, he is well versed in the art of misdirection, so confusing a couple of soldiers like these two is child's play for him. Genba begins bouncing around the forest floor and taunting Sadamune, but Sadamune is not amused and proceeds to fire a shot straight into Genba's face. However, it turns out to have all been an illusion as Genba is still alive and transforms himself into Sufusa for some additional confusion points. With Sadamune distracted, Genba then uses a rope blade to cut Sadamune's bowstring, and afterwards he pulls Sadamune and Sufusa off their horse and to the ground. Sadamune calls Genba unfair for using such cheap tricks, but Genba is proud of his skills and he's not going to let some old man tell him otherwise. Also, regarding the Imperial command Sadamune has, Genba clarifies that he really didn't steal it, but as Sadamune looks into the distance, he sees a pillar of smoke rising from the spot where his storage shed should be, and he is horrified. The shed along with all the documents inside have been engulfed in flames, and before Sadamune can regain his composure, Genba disappears into the night. Tsukfusa is still in shock and asks Satamune if the Imperial command was really still in the shed, but they have no way of knowing for now. So Satamune suggests that they capture the wounded thief and torture him until he confesses about who the ringleader is. Just then, Tsukfusa hears the sound of horses nearby, so he realizes that the accomplices have come back to rescue the injured thief. Satamune doesn't want to let them escape, so he gets his bow and attempts to fire an arrow at Genba, but his string is still cut, so there's nothing he can do as Tokiyuki and the others make their escape. Genba catches up with Kojiro and Ayako, but they complain about how badly hurt Tokiyuki is, but Tokiyuki says it's alright since it's all thanks to Genba that they managed to escape. Plus, the whole mission was really fun, so Tokiyuki hopes he and Genba can do something like this again sometime. Genba thinks back to his father's dying words, and he was told that he may one day find a lord whom he wishes to serve even if it doesn't earn him money. However, he should still take the money, no matter what, so Genba agrees to become Tokiyuki's retainer, but he will only do it in exchange for a province, so if Tokiyuki ends up not being able to pay him back for any reason, Genba is going to hunt down all his future children. Although Tokiyuki misunderstands the threat as Genba offers to play tag with Tokiyuki's future kids. Now that they have successfully destroyed the Imperial command, the people of Suwa's territory can now refuse to hand it over since Satamune's men have no way of proving that it's actually an order from the Emperor. Satamune is pissed that the Suwa residents are refusing to give up their land, but he believes their opposition will only be temporary because he can always just go get another Imperial command from the Emperor by next month. Except no, he actually can't. A messenger comes running up to him with bad news regarding the Imperial command issuing. The line of people seeking rewards for their involvement in the Kamakura raid is unreasonably long, and to make matters worse, many of the people in the line are straight up lying about their achievements, so the Emperor has to spend a lot of time figuring out who really did what. He's really annoyed by it, so he declared that no more land will be redistributed for at least a few years, so everything is going to stay exactly as it is now, including Suwa's territory. Satamune throws a fit over losing the chance to seize Suwa's land, but while he is crying out in anger, Suwa's people is cheering in celebration of their victory. Their plan really paid off in the end, and Suwa is grateful to Tokiyuki, since they would never have gotten their land back if they handed it over to Satamune, and he's also glad Tokiyuki managed to convince Genba to become his retainer because he is sure Genba will be very dependable. Kojiro is also relieved now that he knows for sure that Genba is on their side, although he can be a little vulgar at times. But with his skills, Genba might even be able to sneak into Takaji's home at night and slit his throat. Unfortunately, Suwa tells them that it would be impossible to assassinate Takaji because he is someone that even Suwa cannot predict. Right now, Takaji is on his way to the Emperor's palace, but along the way, he and his soldiers get ambushed by the Emperor's son, Prince Moriyoshi, and pelted with a barrage of arrows. But most of the soldiers are unharmed except the first guy. Takaji congratulates Moriyoshi for being appointed the new shogun, but he asks Moriyoshi why he is attacking him when they are on the same side. Moriyoshi says he is doing this because he knows Takaji will betray the Emperor one day, so he's going to cut him down before that happens. And to make sure Takaji doesn't escape, he has brought an army of his own to take him down. Moriyoshi's soldiers clash with Takaji's, and there is a lot of bloodshed, but ultimately, Moriyoshi's soldiers are just a bunch of random people he got to agree to join him, so they stand no chance against Takaji's elite. Takaji's retainers want to step in to end things quickly, but Takaji says the prince is after him, so he will handle this personally. As soon as Takaji raises his sword, heads begin flying all over the place. Moriyoshi can't believe what he's seeing, but even after witnessing the true power of Takaji, Moriyoshi's men still don't give up and continue to charge at him. However, the second they get close to him, they begin losing their heads to Takaji's sword, and he makes it look so effortless. Moriyoshi is more sure than ever that Takaji is a monster who should not be allowed to walk the earth, so he tries to take him on, but he is totally outmatched by Takaji. Takaji then turns around and kneels before Moriyoshi, pleading for Moriyoshi to have some trust in him. But Moriyoshi isn't believing a single word out of his mouth for a second. He knows he would never be able to win against Takaji alone, but luckily he is not alone, or at least that's what he thought, because when people finally arrive and see the streets soaked with blood, all they care about is getting the chance to talk to Takaji. They completely ignore him despite the fact that he is the prince, and before he knows it, Takaji is being led into the Emperor's palace. Moriyoshi begs the Emperor not to let him in because he can tell that there's something inhuman about Takaji. But no one listens to him because they are all too entranced by Takaji's charisma. Suwa tells Tokiyuki all about this incident, and Tokiyuki can hardly believe that Takaji did all that. He cannot be assassinated because of his unnatural level of skill, and his otherworldly charm makes him a favorite of everyone he goes near. That combination puts him at the top of the world, and Tokiyuki is unsure if he is capable of fighting a man like that. Just then, Ayako comes running in and desperately asks Tokiyuki to come and help her get Jemba to settle down. He has too many drinks, and now he's bouncing all over the room, touching the shrine maidens, and he's not wearing any pants either. He has to go help knock some sense into Jemba, but before he goes, he turns to Suwa and thanks him for all the help he has offered. Because of him, Tokiyuki now knows how he can fight, and he has gathered strong friends to help him as well. So no matter how strong Takagi is, Tokiyuki will keep trying over and over until he defeats him. After that, he turns around so they can go beat up Jemba, and will just ignore what they did to him. This was the end of episode 6. Subscribe to not miss the next part.